Welcome, everyone, to this week's Life Conversations with a Twist. I have the honor of having Tammy Allen on. Her and I, well, we've just personally met, but we were connected through her niece, who I used to work at a restaurant here locally with. And it was funny, you just mentioned that I threw her baby shower when she was pregnant. I miss her, even though we live in the same community. We never see each other, but we will someday.
That's normal, isn't
Yeah.
it?
She was actually on my podcast as well, talking about her
Good.
journey, and she connected us. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. So, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Heather. I'm so happy to be here.
So, tell the listeners a little about who you are. I always like to say, like, where you live. And I also, if you're willing to give your age, just to get, people's set mindset of where you sit in life.
Well, actually, I love my age. I'm 67,
Yes.
not too far away from 68, and I don't find age to be really a limitation. I think it's a wonderful thing because it gives you perspective and experience, and there is no college degree that can get you through that, but and also just to be excited about life still. And so many people are looking backwards instead of the juice of life being what you're doing now,
Mhm.
and that can happen at any age. There's always something to learn, something that's exciting about life. I don't, period. I mean, I can even see, people's, there was an 80-year-old woman. She just ran and completed the Ironman.
Oh, I
80
that.
years old. Wow. You know, so, it just depends on what you just got to figure out what you like. But for me, I've had a lot of different chapters, I call them.
Mhm.
And when it plays out, which is for me in the past has been about a 5-year span. I kind of have a short attention span in general.
Me
So,
too.
so, so, you can just feel when it's played out, and you can't be afraid to let that one go and then start a new journey. I think that that's what's kept me really excited. I call it the juice of life, when you're just not afraid to say goodbye to one thing and then open a new door. And the learning curve is always there. It's going to take time to get proficient at anything, a new business, something, a new skill you're learning. But once you get your sea legs, now you can start, sinking your teeth into it and seeing, what I can create out of this or what I can do. And that's personally, I think, why I'm still so excited and 60. And I do take care of my health. That helps
I was gonna say you
too.
look fabulous. I know. I was gonna say like so many people are more as we are getting older, we are excited for like the next like oh we're excited to be in our 40s or oh we can't wait till we're 50. And then you see so many like especially women who are doing such amazing things and they're older, like no one's really do yes, of course, like people in their 20s are doing really cool things, but I feel like the magic really happens when you can get through all of the life's like learning curves and be able to like shine on the other side. So I'm with you. I'm excited to get older.
Well, you're perfect right where you are, and then you're always becoming. That's what
Yeah.
they say, right?
Yeah. And you live in Georgia.
I do, and I love it here. Yeah, from California, but I like it in Georgia.
I love
The
it.
climate, the scenery, it's just gorgeous here. The weather's good, it's not too extreme. So
I know
I'll be staying.
we're getting into rain this weekend and I'm like, no. So tell our listeners a little bit. I would love to take you back to little Tammy and what life was like growing up with you.
Little
And
Tammy.
I think you really had some juicy nuggets along your journey of growing up to kind of get you to what we're gonna like dive into today.
Okay. Well, I grew up to a single mother, and obviously that had lots of stress for her, and she didn't deal with it very well, which turned out to be good for me because
Right.
I was the well, there's a positive to everything. You just have to flip it. But I was the oldest, and I had a younger brother and sister, so that automatically put me into that position because there wasn't anybody else there. So about the age of 7, I started getting, comprehending what was happening, and so because she would overreact, somebody had to keep it together. So
Mm.
that was me. And so that pattern got established. And then that turned out to be a really good pattern. And really, that's the basis of the book, that the survival response, which is it is to freak out, it is to run or fight or, to just, ah, you know? And in today's world, it doesn't serve us. And that survival response came from when we were running from predators. And the predators now for survival are your credit rating. How do I get housing? How do I make a living? And when we get hit with those kind of stressors, we automatically freak out again. And the nervous system goes, and then plus, because we have memory, that stress response keeps happening because we're trying to figure it out. And now it just keeps replaying. And that's where so many problems come in and people trying to figure out how to deal with them. So that really was, to me, the basis of why I wanted to write the book, because as looking back, that's what kept me alive. So about the age of 17, I was a pretty cocky 17-year-old and thought I could, because, being the oldest and single mom, I ran my own show. So to
And probably the family too.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So I really was very brave, and that's can be bad, meaning that I didn't think that there was real harm that could get me, I guess, because I'd always managed to navigate everything. And I went off with a man pretty much to get away from my mother, who turned out to be a very violent man.
Mhm.
And about 3 days into this trip, because I on this big adventure, he went out for just a convenience store, came back in and just punched me in the face hard when he got in. No discussion, no anything. And I'm in the middle of nowhere. First, I punched him back because what are you going to do? And he punched harder, and he's 6'3". So immediately the other response mechanism came into play.
Mhm.
Like I look around and I'm like, this is not good.
Mhm.
Get the lay of the land. And I quickly did. And assessed my situation, and I played along. So I just played along like, everything was okay. He said he was sorry, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he turned out to not be a good guy. He would threaten to kill my family if I tried to leave and all these kind of things. But I survived, and he ended up in jail, and he's still in jail. And that was like 45 years ago. So needless to say, that was a, I would not have survived had I not been able to navigate that situation. So that has translated since then to pretty much everything that when it's really dire,
Mhm.
and I realize that the survival stress response needs to be to stop and assess the situation and then respond appropriately so that you can minimize the damage, right? Or just kind of, we're always going to get hit with stressors, but how do we navigate? So, my technique is just stop, because we can all do that. We can freeze, which is a survival response, freeze, quickly assess and decide in that moment what's the best response for me in this situation, and then take that actions, and then you just do that again and again. But it takes because we all are naturally geared for different things, so it takes a lot to retrain our patterns. We are pattern people, every one of us. Why it's hard to get new habits and everything. So one of the ways that because I still, it's not like I don't ever react. Of course I do. But in just retraining all of my patterns, any pattern that I wanted to retrain, I created what I call declarations, and it was just for myself to start with. So I would write out just kind of stories of how I wanted to respond to things in the future, and then I put them to soft music in the background. And anytime that I get any kind of stress or anything, I just listen to those over and over, and they're in the first person. So I am embedding that in my subconscious.
Mhm. Mhm.
And after about 6 months, I was like, my thinking patterns changed to the thinking patterns that I actually wanted to adopt. And then in response to that, life is changing, and the way that I'm responding to changing, and the feedback that I'm getting is changing. So I did actually create a whole series of declarations for um, others that kind of start with that beginning survival response, and then retraining into feeling good and how you want to feel, or empowered, and I encourage people to do it for themselves, because I think that's the most powerful tool. And found that people didn't really want to do it. Like we all have this, okay, I'll do that, I'll get to that, but it doesn't become a priority. So I did create a series that you can just listen to on my website or YouTube channel. So when you're stressed out like that, or reality is just kind of coming at you, you can put on the headphones, and it's like it transports you to a different place. And the next thing you know, your body starts relaxing. You can breathe again. And it's just, you can even just listen to the words, whether it's my words or creating your own words, however that would work for an individual. But just training your thinking patterns and retraining them is such a powerful tool. It was literally between 3 to 6 months, I would say, I started really noticing the difference, when at first it was just a tool for me to reset, right? And I love that word. In fact, I created the Great Stress Reset, a Facebook group where people can talk about this, and also share tips, because we all have reset tips, right? And we should be coming up with our own, because we're also unique, and who cares how many tools you got in your toolbox? Use some of mine, use somebody else's, create your own. I have little things like just mantras, like, that don't have resistance within them. Like, I get what I need when I need it.
Mm-hmm.
Such a simple one, because if you try to say, I am super abundant, or blah, there's another part of you saying, no, you're not. that, well, let's look at your bank account, right? So even if you know that that's a good thing to say, you have to believe it in that moment. So if you can just say, I get what I need when I need it. I always figure it out, just very simple things that we can believe, and then it kind of goes in deep. It goes in deeper, and I have found that that has been one of my most powerful things.
I love that.
And of course, journaling. Go ahead.
I was when you said I always figure it out, like that word. That's something that I live by, and I say it to my husband all the time. Like when he stresses about certain things, I'm like, we always figure it out. It always gets figured out. And that's like in my day-to-day life. But for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And you
not,
do, don't you?
and I do. Like everything, we've
Yeah.
always figured it out, you know? And but one thing is I always notice at night, like I wake up, I'm like most people wake up in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. And that's when like the stress like comes back again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yeah,
like, I
yeah.
literally just tell
You
myself,
start trying to figure out problems in your
yes.
mind.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep because you're going to figure it
Mm-hmm.
out tomorrow. When you wake up, you will figure it out. And so I always have to like constantly tell myself, don't worry about it right now. Just go to sleep and we'll figure it out tomorrow. But like, why
That's
is it that
good.
we wake up in the middle of the night and that's when it's like,
Be- I know.
tell me, please.
Because the problems get worked out in our dreams.
Mm,
We're still, they're being kind of worked out for, played out on a different kind of level. And so that's why you wake up with them. I wake up with a lot of answers too. It's not just, some like, I've been working on a physics theory, and it boils down to stress again. But sometimes I'll wake up and I'll have the clue as to what to go search for, or, so there's problem solving that's happening, and it's jumping ahead. But one of the things about this physics theory is that we're in constant adaptation mode. Think about, stress is growth. It's the driver of evolution itself. So when you were talking earlier about there's good stress and bad stress, stress is what creates everything.
mhm,
Without stress, that even taking information, think about, pure potential. In order to create form, it has to come down into a structure,
mhm,
right? So there's this constant cycle going on of stressors, and then the adaptation for the next frame. It's a cycle like this. And
mm,
so it's stress. When I talk about the great stress reset now, I'm not talking just about the stress response itself. I'm talking about the very meaning of stress. We need to reframe the very meaning of stress so that we don't fear it, that we have ways of understanding what it is, and understanding that we have control
mhm,
through our choices, and through our actions, through asking questions, through just reassuring ourselves things like, I'm so smart, I'll figure it out, which was my grandma's. uh, when I was young, I would talk to her and tell her my problems, and she would just listen, you know like this, and then she'd go, You're so smart, you'll figure it out. And I'd be like, oh,
I want you to figure it out for me.
Grandma. But it really is true. As long as we don't freak out, as
Mm,
long as we can maintain enough, and that doesn't mean like you're going to respond perfectly all the time, but just as long as we don't have a complete meltdown. If we can just, go ahead and release the anger in the moment and be like the animals where their stress response is they forget about it because they don't have the memory that we have. They kind of, ruffle their feathers and okay, I just got chased by a lion, but now I'm going to go get a drink of water. We don't quite have that, but we have a lot more. So, it's all good. But I'm just saying that this is just baked into us. And
mhm,
the other thing that I had wanted to do in writing the book, when I was a child, I saw a lot of suffering, like so many of us. And my goal really was to I wanted to do something to ease suffering,
mhm,
and I never really, it was finding all these different ways of doing it throughout my life. But this has just been, writing this book has taken me 4 years because I really did want to make it comprehensive to go all the way from the very beginning of that survival response into um, problem solving and then also owning who you are and that self-agency, not taking the outside culture and all the things that they put on us. And I created what I called the should monster. You should do this and you should do that, and being brave enough to figure out for myself what was right for me, and being able to stand in my own power without overpowering other people, because we all have power.
mhm,
There isn't one of us that is not precious and unique, and we all have this power, and we all have this inner voice that's always trying to give us the guidance and the ideas. Just like you waking up, you're waking up with the problem, but it's being worked out. And I really focus a lot on intuition.
mhm,
When you're not in stress, the ideas, that adaptation of the system, cycling all the time, well, there's an inner part of you, and doesn't matter what name you give it, it could be anything, right? But intuition is the safe one. So if you're just not in a fear-based state of mind, it's constantly feeding you little ideas. Do this, do this, do this. And it doesn't solve the whole problem in that moment. It's just like a hint. And those are, it's just a little bit at a time. And every time that you take action, that leads you to a whole new set of probabilities
mhm,
because time is always ticking. So as that's going around and you make one little, took this action. Well, now new actions are available to you, new options. And so this is going on all the time. So yeah, you do figure it out, but I think it's helpful to understand that you're also getting assistance. You know, that there's those ideas are speaking to us, every single one of us. And it's a very quiet voice. You have to really pay attention because we're so busy thinking thoughts that we're not letting anything in that's
mhm,
inspirational, right? But
mhm,
it's always there. So the more calm you are, the more clear that minded and the more open that you are, you can tell the difference between the thoughts that you've generated and the thought that just kind of it just entered in. And we're just not paying attention. We're not paying attention to the subtlety because it's a very quiet voice, provided that it's not a fear. Fear is not intuition.
mhm,
Fear is the survival program. So if something's, oh no, da 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 da, I mean, look at it, don't ignore the fear, but don't be swept away by it.
mhm.
Don't, because if you start freaking out about the fear, well, there you just made that choice and now it just keeps building momentum.
Friends, I have such an exciting product that I need to share with you. Are you someone who hates washing their face at night? Yep, that's me. For years, I never wanted to wash my face. And finally, I found a product that actually gets me excited to wash my face every night, and that is Clear Stem. I have tried so many products over the years to find the one that I truly love, the one that makes my skin glow, the one that makes me feel good when I wash it, and the one that gets me excited to want to wash my face. I discovered Clear Stem through another podcaster, and I was like, I got to give this a try. I instantly became obsessed. Some of my favorite products are the hydrating cleanser, which I use every night. It smells delicious. It makes my skin feel so great. Once a week, I use their Vita Scrub, which is an exfoliating cleanser, and that just has these little micro beads in it that just make your face feel so beautiful. I can just feel them get into my pores and really give my face this huge glow. And then one of my other favorite products is the Hydra Berry mask. And once you wash your face, you put a layer of this on your skin and you go to sleep and you wake up and your face feels like butter. I get so many compliments on my skin now. I don't get a lot of breakouts anymore. My face feels like nice and hydrated and bright, and it's all because of the Clear Stem product. What I love about them is that their products are all clean. They're good for your skin, they're good for your body, and they have so many different product lines based on the type of skin you have. So go down in the show notes, click on the link. I'm giving 15% off to anybody who uses my code, and I promise you, once you try this, you are going to be obsessed just as much I am. So again, go down to the show notes, click on the link, receive 15% off, and give Clear Stem a try. I promise you will not regret it. I love what you say about getting rid of the stress thoughts in your head to allow for, like more positive and like ideas coming in, because it's so true. Because like I notice when I'm in like that state of stress or just I feel overwhelmed with like everything going on, I'm like, the moment that I can get rid of that, whether that's like taking a walk or, kind of changing my space around me, I get so creative then, and like all these
Hmm.
crazy ideas come in, and it's a beautiful thing.
Write them down quickly, by the way, because they leave quickly too.
No, and they always come at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like you said you're very creative at that time. It's like your brain is like creating something, and it's true, because sometimes those are my best thoughts or my best ideas. Waking up and thinking about that, I'm like, "Ooh, well, what about that?" So yes, like I'm gonna get my phone out. I have all these random notes at 2 a.m.
Right, right. There you
That
go. There
makes
you go.
sense.
And then plus it gets you can go back to sleep after that.
Yes, gets it off your mind.
Right. It's all, but I started this a long time ago. I was a musician. That was my first love. I mean, I would did that for a living till I was in my 50s. And I would start to write a song, and I love songwriting, and I'd get an idea and I go, you get the verse and you get the chorus and then nothing. So I would, if I tried to just grind it out, it wasn't good. So I would walk away. I would do laundry. I would, and then here's an idea. Go over there and I'd write it all down, and then I go wash the dishes, or showering or driving a car or anything that's like allowing these two sides of your mind to kind of communicate back and forth. And as I would clear it up, that's when the idea would come. So that's when I first really started noticing it. That's when I first started cluing in. So then I started applying it to other things, cooking, dressing. And it was by asking questions. You have to have a problem to solve.
Mhm.
So when you have a problem to solve, that's how you get the solutions to whatever that it is. And what really clued me in was I started a marketing company, Do Good, Get Rewards. I noticed that, we get all the fear stuff in our media, but people are doing good too.
Mhm.
That is going on everywhere and it's not publicized. So I was doing marketing at the time, and I thought, well, what a great way. Businesses have a hard time getting foot traffic, right? Small businesses especially. So I created this Do Get Rewards to reward volunteers.
Mm.
They get free stuff. They go to the, I'm publicizing it. So anyway, so I was building this, and I had no idea about websites or anything. And I found somebody, again, kind of using intuition, but there was a lot of function that nobody had done before that I
Mhm.
was asking. So I would get with the person that I had hired, and I would say, I want to do this, this, and this. And he'd be like, oh, like, I don't know how to, And then I would hang up the phone and I would get an idea. And I'd call him back and he'd go, oh, that's great. Low tech. Because I was just going ABC, right? Okay, if
Mhm.
it goes to here, then it has to connect to here, then it has to connect to here. And that happened about 3 times. And I was like, wow. I don't know anything about this. I knew songwriting, but I was not familiar with that. So that's when I really started working on developing my intuition and understanding that it is something that you can develop. It's not, it's there for all of us all the time. It just depends on your state of mind, really. And
Mhm.
in order to get expansive thoughts, you've got to be in an expansive state of being. So if you're looking to really get intuition, elevate your emotional state of being by taking a nice walk or listening to comedy or something that's uplifting, because we are entrained. There's brainwave entrainment because we're all connected, so we feel each other, right? So if somebody's feeling sick and bad, then you naturally feel that. We can't help it because we're human, and that's a beautiful thing. But that also means you can use that same entrainment that we naturally feel to rise, to lift, to uplift, and you can do it purposefully. And so distracting yourself even from dire circumstances, which may seem like I don't have the time to do that. I've got this, awful thing that's on my plate and I have to deal with it. Try to take a break. Try to do something to distract yourself so that some kind of idea can break through. And I like to think of it as there's always a third option. These kinds of phrases come into my mind. It may not be a good option. If you're in a bad situation and you can't find any options, keep coming at it from different angles. It may not be a good option, and sometimes it may even be a disruptive option,
Mhm.
but you will shake up your probabilities. And now your choices and your potential actions will shift. And even that can break loose the dam.
Mm. Oh, so good. Such a good reminder too. Because I think the other thing people are always stressed. When I think of people and they're like, I'm so stressed out, I have like all these things to do. I write everything down. Like I
Me
have
too.
list on list on list because what happens is it's like once it's somewhere else, it's not in my brain. And I really am really good about having a to-do list, but having it for per day. So if I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to like cancel a dentist appointment. And so instead of like thinking about it all day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to calendar to do it on Monday or put it on a date where that day I can show up and I can do the thing. But or even just like packing, if you're like packing to go somewhere and you're stressed out because you're like, I have all these, like write it down, like just get it out of your brain. And people ask me all the time how I do all the stuff that I do. And I'm like, I'm very, very list oriented because it's
I, I
true.
did it. I did the
I'm not
same thing.
stressed because I'm like, I'm not thinking about it constantly.
We can only handle so much processing
Yeah.
at a time,
Yep.
and language is how we process information, right? That's how we categorize everything. So the reason for journaling and the reason for writing things down is exactly what you said. It's getting it outside of you, and then there you have record of it, and now you don't have to keep it clogged, clogging the system. But it's even more than that. Journaling for me, if I have, it really was my first thing that started allowing me to process more efficiently. I
Mhm.
would think that I could just flip, do it in my head, but then you just end up spinning on it and you'll try to get off that groove and then it pulls you back. So when you put it outside of you like that, and then when I see it physically and I put it down, I can compartmentalize it. That makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
I can put it in some place that, oh, here's what that's all about. And lately, I've been using the LLMs to because I always did it just for myself, but now I've started using chat is my favorite, but there's others too, and I will dialogue with chat because I'll just say whatever, and it's not to depend on it. It's because it will throw back something at me I hadn't thought of in that way before.
Mhm.
So it's a different kind of feedback, and it's also safe, meaning that because I don't want to tell anybody else. When I first started journaling, I would throw every paper away. I didn't want anybody to see it. I didn't want to read it. I don't want any record of it. It just felt so personal. But now I don't do that. I just use chat, and sometimes it's frequent. It will phrase something that is different than me, and a lot of it's not good. I mean, it's just blah blah blah. It's not that it's very supportive, but it's you're like, oh, shut up. Because it can be so, oh, you're so bad. And you're just kind of like your grandma, who's who's, trying to tell you you're so smart when you don't feel smart at the time. But so I use that too. And
Mm.
the tools that we have, use whatever tool works for you. And then it may work for a while and it may not work for a while. So being in a constant search for how do I feel better? How do I solve this problem? And your intuition or ideas will not come to you if you don't have a problem that you're trying to solve.
So
But
true.
once you have a system where you can do it, you start getting confidence. And that's why I named my book Turning Stress into Doubtless Confidence, because I realized that all of the hardships, and especially the one that was the hardest, which was, surviving 4 years like that and having his child, and
Oh,
that was even harder to survive because he inherited his father's genes. And
oh.
he was, they didn't like him in preschool. They were happy when he was absent. So it was my son that really forced me to look at myself, because you can't abandon your child. You can't run from your child. You can't, well, you could, but it's not, you won't be, you won't be able to live with yourself because you inside know, and
Mhm.
we can't run from ourselves. So I'm happy to say that he's doing good today, but he's like 48 years old, and it took a long, long time. And I had to learn how to stand strong when it was real chaos. It was
And is
real
that what a
chaos.
lot of your
And
book is about? Is like how you walked through those moments and give people takeaways on when they go through a stressful situation, how to kind of overcome that?
yes, what I do is I have techniques, and then I weave in my stories, my real stories of how I how I use that and how I came to that and how I navigated. I have a thing I call the information manifestation system, because everything is information.
Mhm.
And I tell how I use that. I used it to, I at one point had scoliosis. Well, I still have scoliosis, but I was in constant pain. And I had a doctor tell me, after I thought that he had something really for me, that I was too old and not responding. That's always fun.
Seriously.
Oh, believe me, you want to talk about some anger. How dare you say I'm too old?
Seriously.
So, so I took his techniques and I figured out how to do them on my own. It took about 2 years before I really got myself out of pain, but I'm back to full training, and I still experience some pain, but I know how to manage that, and it's not a detriment anymore. And I take people, so I demonstrate how I actually use that process, not just for that, but for other things. You can apply it to anything. It doesn't matter the medium, I like to say, whether you're creating a painting, whether you're fixing your back, whether it's a health thing, it's a money issue. The process is the same. Identify the problem, research it. What are your options? Assess it, get your ideas, take action, repeat every single day. The universe is like in a cycle. It's just like we're breathing in and out, just like a heartbeat. It's the same exact process. So nothing's going to get built in a day. There is no instant, we don't go from childhood to adulthood or to 67 without a whole lot of frames in between. And so making peace with the time that it takes. That's another one. It takes the time it takes. You can't rush it. And if you try to rush it, you usually make bad choices. And gosh, I have a lot of them, but I will not suffer for the choices of others
Mm,
is a very powerful and yet hard to live statement.
yeah.
Because again, we're empathetic beings, but if we don't get the feedback, we won't know what to do next. Everyone has to get the feedback of their choices so that they learn. And many of us learn the hard way, and some of us learn a little easier, but it's the same process. It doesn't matter who we are.
It's interesting when I feel like the framework of like how you can deal with like a stressful situation, like it reminds me a lot of the people who go through like something hard comes at them and they go into this like poor me, like the universe is against me, but to me it's like those tools and that framework how to work through it is exactly to help those peoples or those situations as well, not just even just a stressful thing, but like something hard which could be stressful, but also hard, just feels like a lot.
Yeah.
But I love that framework around for that too.
It pretty much applies to every little thing.
Hmm.
Even now, I love that I can, you can just use your imagination frequently too. I mean, it applies to everything, whether I'm cooking, creating my own little recipe. It doesn't have to be always hard either. I used it for art. I became an abstract artist after not being a musician anymore. And, and that gave me the ability to see things
Hmm.
in images. And there's actually a lot more information that can happen in an image than just an idea. So, in the course of painting, I would have the idea, just like in songwriting, and I'd be go, oh, this is great. Then all of a sudden you're like, no, no, it's not great. and and I wouldn't know where to go next. And I would walk away to clean my brushes. See, cleaning is just such a good thing. Clean my brushes, and a flash of an image would come into my mind because here's the problem I'm working on, right? And then you have to catch it. Like you have the thing is so subtle. Those ideas are so subtle. You have to be paying attention and then you got to unpack them, right? So then I would try to recreate the image in my mind and then I would go try it on the painting. So, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but it would always lead me to a new direction. And I think that that's it. In the entrepreneurial world, you have to pivot. The minute something doesn't work, pivot, pivot, pivot. Don't be afraid to pivot just because you had an idea. That's just the beginning. That's just the blueprint. And even that is constantly changing. So you, I feel like this has just given me such fearlessness to try anything,
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that to be in any way boastful. I just feel like I've tapped into something that is accessible, and that's what that gives me this kind of confidence. It's the experiences, it's which all of these processes were pretty much gathered just by me trying to figure my own stuff out, right? And I went for all the different tools and anything that worked for me. And I don't think that there's any one way to do anything.
Hmm.
But the more that we can gather, the more information that we have, then the more we can do with that information, the more empowered that we become. And that's what's exciting. Getting an award for something is a very fleeting thing. I mean, to me, like even when I would perform and somebody would compliment me, it would, I like, okay, great, thank you. You know what I mean? For me, it was all about, did I sing to the level that I knew that I could? Did I meet my own standards? And if I did not, which frequently I did not, um, and somebody would say, you sing great, it'd be like, no, I didn't really.
We're our worst
So,
critics for sure.
huh?
We're our worst critics for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But even that's a fun process when you just think about it, that because you're aspiring to hit your mark. I call it when I know I hit my mark. That's what excites me. Not so much the reward of it, which I'm not against rewards. I love getting compliments too, but it's really all an internal um, gauge.
Hmm.
We've got to know it inside. Somebody from the outside can't give you confidence. When my son was young, I would try to tell him he was so smart, right? Did not land because one day he got some serious compliments for a teacher and had all these great things happen. And and I said that, see, I told you. And I see this little smirk. Like he felt it, he felt it inside. And even though we compliment our children, and that's what you're supposed to do, of course, they have to feel it and own it for themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't take, not in any real way. Maybe later, my grandma saying that, it definitely helped me later on. But at the time, I was like, oh, yeah, right.
Hmm.
But anyway, just that's all I got to say on that. It was
I
just
love that.
such a
I
fun
think
time.
like I love all these tools for especially stress or situations that we can really control. But one of the things that we had talked about briefly is there's a lot of stress that we can't control, and
Right.
and that's what's going on in the world or what we're seeing on the news. Like, what advice do you have? Because I see, especially on social media, people are all freaking out about everything, right? Which I get it. But like, what advice or basically advice do you have for these people who kind of like get sucked into the chaos that's happening around and take that stress and apply it to like their everyday life?
I think you focus on what you can control,
Yeah.
which is your own life. And if you're focused on the chaos, you're in chaos. And your own life will reflect the chaos that you're observing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that I look at the big picture. We are going through a time of evolutionary change.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is changing. And sometimes the disruption, if you look back throughout history, these cycles happen too. Cycles are everywhere.
Yeah.
This is another cycle. And while it's change is always difficult, none of us like change. Ultimately, change is growth. It's part of the system. And you have to take the long view and still focus on yourself. Now, let's say you're really into doing something about it. You want to take action. You're compelled to take action. Take action, but try to take the most strategic, effective action you can take. So plan. So think, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? The reason that I came up with the physics theory was I kept studying physics because I wanted to understand how the system works. I knew it had to be a self-perpetuating system, but a systems thinker gets to the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is a system with a system. So I kept looking for what are the mechanics, because if I understood the mechanics, I could work the system better. It was pretty selfish. So what is it that you can work? What, if here's your goal, it's the same process. Here's my goal. I want to affect change for the future, for future generations, or even just for right now. Is there anything that I can do within my power that would be effective?
Mm-hmm.
Not just complaining about it or worrying about it because you're just perpetuating what you don't want. And you're putting your own self in harm's way. But that doesn't mean not do anything about it. I don't go outside of my own scope unless I'm solid. Like I have no power. All I can do is influence through my own example,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost. And if I don't have my own self, and I call it coherence, you have to be in coherence. So I have to be in coherence in order to be effective for myself, first and foremost, or
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. And the more coherent that I am, then I have more power to affect change with others. And I can only influence. And that's why I do not suffer for the choices of others because I have no power there.
Mm-hmm.
Where is your power? It's in here.
It's so good. So good. My little dog just walks in.
I
Um,
love dogs. We
what
are dog people.
we have talked about lots of different like things to manage stress and how to kind of overcome that. Is there anything that we didn't get to talk to about when it comes to stress or any tips and tricks that you have learned along the way that have helped you?
I think I pretty much covered them
You did
all. And
cover
if
a
I
lot of
didn't
them.
cover them,
Yeah.
then they're also in the book. I have a lot of short chapters. I have yeah, and some fun stories. It's not heaviness. You can see I don't like to be heavy.
Hmm.
In fact, I made even like the should monster. I like to put a lot of fun in my videos because they're serious topics,
Yeah.
but we can't take ourselves too serious. And so I did actually create an animated character called the should monster.
It's so cute.
And he's pretty funny. And just, still keeping light about it. We have to find our balance. While on the one hand, life is serious, the other hand, don't take life too serious. What can you do to have fun and balance out, within yourself that because life is supposed to be enjoyable and fulfilling. And I think once we get a handle on how to navigate it, then we can make room for that joy
Yeah.
that's within us and not make it just such a struggle to live. And we are kind of at that state of place of evolution where I mean, I'm certainly feeling it too, and I constantly have to rebalance myself. I look at it too, and it's not like it doesn't affect me, and it doesn't, make me feel bad for those that are suffering. But I don't have power there, so I have more power trying to empower others. With what I know, that to me, that's how I can
Mhm.
affect change.
That's beautiful. Your book is not out yet, but it comes out next week. But by the time this is released, it will already be out. So how can people
Yay!
find your book?
TammyAllen.com. Pretty easy for that one. I have a YouTube channel. Again, Tammy Allen, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, if you go to my website, everything is there, as well as a lot of free stuff. The declarations are there. I have uh, also worksheets and lots of free things because I just want to put them out there. I
Mhm.
mean, certainly we all need to make money, but I don't think money can ever be the driver
Mhm.
because then that has a hold. And I'm not saying that I don't want that too. I'm just saying that to me, just making it a little easier for future generations, planting those seeds like my grandma helped me,
Yeah.
that is exciting. That is fulfilling, and that's my main. So they can just go to tammyallen.com and find me on social media. I got a lot of silliness out there, as well as the Great Stress Reset Facebook group. They plug that in there. They'll find the Great Stress Reset. And if others have stress tips, please share. Please talk about if you're, not to make it like everybody whining about their own stories, but just touching on them because we all share the same stories in essence. We're all dealing with similar things, and we by supporting each other it alleviates our stress. And not to mention that we're not alone in it.
Mhm. It's so true. That is why I made this podcast because I wanted to have these conversations because knowing that everybody's going through somebody that if you're struggling with something right now, someone else is as well or has and is able to you can connect with them. I'm really big about connections and being able to connect to people and you learn so much from them and you can support each other. So that is exactly why I started this podcast because just for that reason. So thank you
Well,
so
I'm
much
so
for
happy
being
that you
here.
did.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
It's 4 years ticking along every week because it's stories
four
like yours.
years.
It's your experiences, it's your journeys that really inspire others. And this is exactly why I do it.
Well, I'm happy for you, and I'm happy that there are many people in this conversation. Fortunately, this is a time where we are not alone. While it may feel like it's overwhelmingly negative, I think there are more people that are working underneath, you know, affecting that change, that ocean is rising and rising, and it's natural to because we're empathetic beings. We're all in this together when it comes down to it. It's just that not everybody's figured that out yet.
Mhm. So true. So true. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. We'll include how everybody can find you and follow you and be inspired by you. But I just wanted to thank you for being here today.
Well, I appreciate you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you.